Hi, welcome to the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, What We Do and Why It Matters. I'm Susan Griffith and I am the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program Coordinator here at University of Florida IFAS Manatee County Extension. About 50 of the 67 Florida counties do have an active Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, and each county is run a little bit differently. So I'm going to be talking to you specifically about what we do in Manatee County. So the reason the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program is important is that Florida is experiencing really quite exponential population growth. Florida is now suddenly the state where everyone wants to retire to, it seems, and about 1,000 new people are moving here each day. Our projected population by the year 2060 is about 36 million people living in the state. So if you look at this projected land use map here, all of these orange areas are areas that are going to be converted from natural lands or rural spaces into urban use, meaning paved surfaces. And this area is equivalent to the size of the state of Vermont. So it is a really significant area. Of course, with that change comes definite environmental concerns. So there is an obvious increase in the demand for water. There's going to be an increase in pollution. There's going to be decreased filtration ability because there's going to be so many more paved surfaces. So the runoff is going to be much more of a problem. The water is not going to have a chance to percolate through natural processes the way that it used to before the paved surfaces were there. So this obviously will lead to a lot more unintended consequences with water pollution. And also, of course, an obvious decrease in wildlife habitat. Domestic water usage is high compared to other nations, and it is twice approximately what European usage is. Florida has one of the highest rates in the United States, and part of that is due to our irrigation of lawns and landscaping. Unfortunately, we all want everything to look so green and perfect. There's sort of a Disneyfication of Florida. It's an unattainable goal, really. It's not a sustainable goal to have a perfectly green lawn. Water obviously is life, and no life can exist on Earth without good, clean water to drink. Here in Florida alone, we are currently using nearly 6.4 billion gallons of water per day, and that number is growing. As I mentioned before, we have an estimated 1,000 new people moving to the state each day. The projections for future water usage are estimated to increase by the year 2040 by 1 billion gallons per day. Obviously, we need to start doing things to plan ahead for this increase. And regarding outdoor water usage, an estimated 75% of residential water is used outdoors, and over half of that is going directly to landscape irrigation. The rest of that outdoor water usage going to things such as pools or hot tubs or other water features. So the vast majority of outdoor water usage is actually potable drinking water at 69%. 69% of the water used to irrigate outdoor landscapes is our municipal, city, or county water source. Only about 9% of the outdoor water usage is actually reclaimed water. Only about 14% of the water used comes directly from wells or surface water, and a mere 2% of the water being used outdoors is from rain barrels, and 6% of people don't know where their water comes from at all. So here at Manatee County, we do sell rain barrels to encourage the use of non-potable water to irrigate landscape plants with. They can be painted to be quite pretty, or they can be painted to kind of blend in with your home in a way that your HOA should not have any problem with. If you do live in an HOA, you should be able to still get approval to have a rain barrel. It is an accepted element of Florida-friendly landscaping, and you should not be denied the right to have one. They may have a say in how and where you'll be placing that rain barrel, but you really should not be denied access to a rain barrel. A lot of things that we try to educate people on with Florida-friendly landscaping is the reduction of heavily maintained turf grass. Turf does have its place in landscapes. It can be excellent for filtration of water as well as erosion control when it is in healthy condition. But the downside of that is that sometimes in order to keep it in healthy condition, it can be among the neediest of all of your landscape elements as far as the need for water, the need for chemical fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. Sometimes the good can outweigh the bad with turf grass, and it's really a good idea to try to reduce the amount of turf grass you have by limiting it to only functional areas, giving it a purpose, replacing sections of it with plants that are much more drought tolerant by just expanding your plant beds outward. So the use of drought-tolerant, Florida-friendly, and native plants can really help you with reducing the amount of water that you're using on your landscape. Most drought-tolerant plant species will live quite happily once they are established without any additional irrigation other than natural rainfall. A very big part of Florida-friendly landscaping is knowing what you have, knowing what your plants' needs are, and grouping them accordingly. You want to group your plants according to their water needs. You don't want to mix drought-tolerant plants with plants that require quite a lot more water. So these are some examples of drought-tolerant plant species that do well in your high and dry spots with full sun. Native Salvia coccinea, the culinary herb rosemary, which can certainly be planted in the ground and used as a landscape element. That's also very useful for cooking. And Texas sage is a shrub that really does not require any additional irrigation whatsoever. And lion's ear, Leonidas leonoris, is another very colorful landscape shrub that requires little irrigation, if any. We also sell compost bins and vermicompost bins here at Manatee County Extension. Using compost can greatly improve your soil quality, leading to healthier plants without the need for chemical fertilizers. And another plus is that it also helps to increase the water holding capacity of our really sandy soils that we have here, leading to a reduction in your irrigation. And we do sell these at our cost. Some of the big picture goals of the FFL program, obviously the overall farthest reaching goal is water conservation, but we're also here to try to reduce non-point source pollution. The easiest way to describe this is, let's say a chemical plant has a spill of their product, an unintended catastrophic spill. Well, you can point to that, right? That is point source pollution. Now, the difference there, non-point source pollution, is basically our collective pollution as humans. Our collective individual pollution is non-point source pollution. We try to reduce that through education, to try to encourage people to use proper fertilization practices, proper irrigation practices to reduce the amount of runoff that may occur, as well as reducing the amount of pesticides that are being used on residential and commercial landscapes. Here in Manatee County, we offer a landscape assistance program where we help both individuals and HOAs to develop more friendly practices in their landscapes by helping them to reduce the amount of heavily maintained turf grass that they have in their communities and their yards. We make plant recommendations and suggest ways that they can save more water by altering their irrigation practices. And we also advise them on ways to make their stormwater ponds more environmentally friendly. For HOAs, we actually make site visits and we tour the community with board members and other stakeholders, and we take notes and photos, and then we follow up with reports of our findings and give our recommendations, and sometimes we are asked to present these formally to a board. However, if there is a dispute between the landscape company and the HOA, we do refer those to our county environmental horticulture agent who handles those sort of events. Protecting the waterfront is a very important principle of Florida-friendly landscaping. Here in Florida, we are just literally surrounded on all sides and beneath our feet by water. And every community pretty much has stormwater ponds. We are called out there to address usually when conditions have become intolerable. They have toxic algal blooms or erosion or both. Generally, we make the following recommendations of establishing a no-mow zone at the edge of the water body. We suggest appropriate native plant material. Emphasis on native plants. You really want to use native plants only for any sort of border with a body of water. And these plants help to filter out chemicals and excess nutrient before it actually reaches the water. A 10-foot low-growing plant border is recommended at every body of water's edge. And this also helps to prevent erosion. Even still bodies of water do experience, some degree of water movement due to wind and whatnot. And actually the practice of mowing to the edge of the ponds can definitely exacerbate the erosion that is taking place in many, many communities. We also offer FFL-themed presentations for communities, and we also offer FFL educational community walks, which are really fun, interactive ways for people to get outside and get to know the flora of their community, and also get to know each other and enjoy each other's company while getting some exercise as well. And for individuals, we make in-office appointments to conduct our landscape assistance program consultations, what we abbreviate as LAPs. They are asked ahead of time to make a site plan or provide their site plan, photos of their yard and the areas that they're going to be renovating. They're asked to complete a soil pH test ahead of time. We do offer those at our office for a nominal fee. And also they'll be asked to fill out a detailed questionnaire so that we can figure out how to best assist them. We make recommendations for them based on the 9 principles of Florida-friendly landscaping and make plant species suggestions that will be most appropriate for them based on all of these site conditions. We can also make site visits if they are bundled with their neighbor. So if an individual needs us to come out to their yard, we generally ask them to find a neighbor or two that also would like to have some help in their community so that we can justify the trip out to the community. Of course, the exception to this would be for people who have really, really large lots where it's difficult to get a handle on everything because it's such, over an acre, it's difficult to deal with that just by pictures alone. Or if they have extenuating circumstances that may justify an in-person site to their individual. So Florida-friendly landscapes can actually conserve 40 to 60% or more water that traditional landscapes require. Here is a gentleman who had a typical traditional turf grass dominated yard, and he was putting out 20,000 gallons of water, potable water, per month, and the grass still never looked very good. He thought, this is crazy, I'm going to do something different. He actually converted to a 100% native plant yard. Eventually, in this photo here, it actually shows a little bit of remaining turf grass, but now he's actually gotten rid of that as well. This new landscape with 100% native plants now uses less than 1,000 gallons per year, and the water is only used in the dry months only. This landscape takes less than 2 hours per week to maintain. Here are some examples of another landscape that was a traditional landscape with turf grass dominating the yard, a little bit of foundation plantings, and they killed off their grass. This is the after picture after they did their Florida-friendly landscape remodel. Now, do be sure if you do live in an HOA that you do have permission from your HOA before you make any sort of radical changes to your landscape. If your landscape is not in code or does not meet the standards of your HOA, that will automatically preclude you from being able to be considered for actual Florida-friendly landscaping status. You will not be able to be recognized as a Florida-friendly landscape unless you meet the HOA's criteria. So here's another example of a backyard. In this case, that is the after of that same backyard. It's hard to believe that that is the same yard. Here's some other examples of Florida-friendly yards. These are some front yards. As you can see, this is definitely not your grandfather's traditional, heavily maintained turf grass dominant front yard. This is the use of a lot of beautiful native plants. Again, more examples of how beautiful and how varied a true Florida-friendly landscape can be. So here are some of the impacts as far as water conservation goes. Our estimated annual water savings from FFL program efforts as well as water conservation department efforts combined, we have saved our Manatee County customers 14,438,550 gallons of water. And statewide efforts have saved 386,541,761 gallons. Such a big number I can barely get it out. We've also had great success with our workshop participants adopting new Florida-friendly best management practices in their landscape as a result of attending FFL educational workshops. So 96% have reported adopting one new practice at least. Here are some more impacts in Manatee County of our attendees of our workshops. 75% have reported reducing their irrigation frequency from 3 days a week to 2 days per week or less after attending a water conservation workshop. 83% began using rain gauges that hadn't used them before. 100% now report manually turning off irrigation when there is adequate rainfall. 100% have begun removing invasive plant species from their yards. 62.5% have replaced high maintenance plants with low maintenance plant material. 87% have matched plants to site conditions to conserve water, fertilizer, and pesticides. 44% of attendees have added a rain barrel. 55.6% have added a compost bin. 88.9% have mulched to the recommended depths. And 88.9% also have begun leaving their grass clippings on their lawn. We also have a Florida-friendly landscaping yard recognition program, and this is for individuals as well as commercial and municipal landscapes. We would like to recognize you. It does take some effort to convert your landscape to a Florida-friendly landscape, and we would love to recognize you for that. So we will come out to tour your property with a checklist of criteria, and for those who meet the criteria or surpass it, you will receive this lovely yard sign as well as a certificate. And there are levels to attain of either silver or gold, depending on whether you have met the criteria or not. And we also do promote the Florida Backyard Wildlife Habitat Program. This is another yard recognition program, and this one, of course, is with the emphasis on principle number 5 of Florida Friendly Landscaping, attracting wildlife. So if you have a landscape that is really just all about the wildlife, we would love to come out and tour it and give you this wonderful sign and recognize you for your great efforts there. We want to first and foremost just open people's eyes to the fact that each of our individual landscapes really should be viewed as part of the greater ecosystem rather than something isolated and separate from it. In everybody's yard, really, what you do in your yard does impact everything else. Your yard really is an integral part of the protection and preservation of our environment in Florida. I thank you very much for your attention today, and please do reach out to me if you have any questions, and please visit this site for more information on Florida Friendly Landscaping. Thank you.